Hello there. Right, I think we're good to go. Let's just get on with things. This is our Maya quick tips just for explaining specularity maps in Maya and other 3D applications, of course. Specularity maps are essentially an alpha map or a black and white or grayscaler material used to control what level of shininess or sheen that we see on some really basic material surfaces such as blend materials and Phong materials. And of course, those materials are one step beyond the standard default Lamberts that you're used to using, which you will use by default in Maya and other applications, of course. What is it then? I think the best way is actually just to look at it, of course, and try to understand and wrap our heads around something. I'll dive in here, of course. In context, specularity maps are something that we used to use a lot of. They are gradually becoming and very quickly coming out of fashion, sadly, because other workflows are more complex workflows have started taking place, especially in AAA games development and films. But specularity maps still have a cheap and cheerful reputation. They're very efficient, they're quick to make, and they do a lot for very little. And of course, you'll still find examples of specularity maps in some PC games, low-end casual games, and of course the handheld games market, where of course they're always looking for efficiency and bang for buck. But of course, more advanced material systems in things, game engines like Unity and Unreal, of course, are moving on to other things, and they're doing it rather well. However, though, we can still do a lot with a classic specularity map. Demonstration time. This is a sculpture you can get for free if you're looking for it. It's from good old Sketchfab, and what I like about it is it's a LiDAR scan. It's actually not something somebody's hand modeled. It's a photogrammetry model or a LiDAR model scanned either using photographs or a handheld scanner some kind. It is a sculpture of Louis Fuller by Joseph Cratina, and of course it is I think from a digital exhibitions or archiving project. And there's lots of that stuff happening in different parts of the world where they're trying to, document and store old items in digital databases, and this is it's a good example of it. So if I rotate through this, you can see that we have I have two color maps in this particular demo, right? So there is only color information and there is only a specularity map. Now the color information is giving us these lovely warm browns and oranges, which gives us this impression of the wood material. I think it's wood anyway. If not, it's a very convincing copper material. And of course, the other color you can see here is this sheen. And this sheen material, you can see it here at the bottom of the dress and the foot of the body. And of course, the shoulder, neck, and face. We can see it gives us that little highlight that makes this look like an actual object. And of course, as this rotates around, we can see that information trickling over it, and it's really cool. And of course, if I rotate upwards, that becomes more apparent because, of course, information or anything to do with shininess or polish or glossiness, of course, is all based on the angle of lighting and the angle of the camera. And of course, we can see that here. And it's all very, very beautiful and wonderfully artsy. It's as it should be. And of course, just to show what that means, so I'm using a standard, just a blend material here. But if I break that color connection, right? Let's break the connection. There we go. And it's just essentially the specularity information left. We can see, especially if we go up close here, on the base of the foot especially, how we've got this little trickle of polish, and how that polish is almost constrained to these outer edges and lines, which gives it this lovely quality. What's interesting as well is if we actually switch the lights out, sometimes that can become a little bit more apparent, not always, but there we go. Yeah, so it gives us a slightly more even visual base to kind of look at. We're not looking at intense lighting information. And of course, again here, as I rotate that up and down, you can see that sheen information and how it corresponds to this particular object. It's highly customized. And of course, the other option is that you don't use a spec map. It's just you use the full glossiness. So if I remove the specularity map, or specular color as it's known in Maya, break the connection, we get the full sheen. Now the full sheen is, you can see it actually looks like wet clay almost. It's almost too much, but it has its own appeal. And there's certain situations where like full sheen with no specular map to control it is desirable to some people. I think usually when sculpting, it can be very, very useful because it lets you see what you've done. In this particular case, though, it's a little too rampant. Though it does have its own appeal, of course. However, though, remember, you're used to working with standard Lamberts. And if I was to add a Lambert to this, you'll see the difference just whenever we don't have any sheen information, assign a new material, standard Lambert material, and of course it's just so matted, it just doesn't have that glossiness. And it's always such a shame. So anyway, though, let's just get on with it. What is a specularity map? So I'm going to bring up a sphere. Going to bring it over here. Let's make this big. You can see I've kept the background here nice and visible, just so everything on the front pops a little bit better. So this has, we can see here, it is a standard material. It's our default Lambert material, and all it has is, remember looking at our attribute editor here, color transparency, ambient color, incandescence, and all that jazz. We've seen all that before. But if we go and add a new material, let's assign a new material, and we can stick something like, there are a couple of materials here you're used to maybe not using, but they're there. So our Lambert's in there, our Blinn is in there, and of course we got Fong and Fong E. And of course you can choose either any of them. As long as you can see that little specular highlight in there, or that little sheen, then you know it's going to be shiny. So if I just use a standard Blinn material again, you can see that as soon as I select it, we get this highlight right in the middle. I'm going to switch my lights on though, because I think it gives us a more effective impression of what's going on. But I'm just going to drop the color quickly, just so we can really see those highlights, just so they come out a bit closer. And as I rotate around that, I have 3 lights in this scene, and you can see those lights are causing this lovely glossiness. And it's just a little studio setup, so of course we're getting that 3-point lighting system, spotlight, fill light, and a direct light. In this case, and of course we can see that shininess. But this is how that filter works. So let me just demonstrate that by bringing up our map. Okay, so we have this full shine. Okay, we want to control that, and we want to control that using a specularity map. Now this is my specularity map. It's just a 1024 by 1024 map, I believe, and it's a black background with white text that says specularity. The rule is, where it's white, the filter will let through anything. So it will essentially, it's a lot like an alpha map. So any shine material will come through where it's white, and it'll go away where it's black. It's completely blocked out. So it's that difference between 0 and 1. And of course there's grays in between, which I haven't included in this example, but we can see that in the original specularity map that is there. So there's the color map. Now, the UVs for this, by the way, not my doing, but LiDAR information tends to be kind of like that, a little bit scattered and all over the place, because it's put together by algorithms and AI to a degree. And of course, it works, but it's not particularly neat. But of course, we can see here color information and then the specularity information, which again, it's a black and white map, which says where it's black, there's no shine. Where it's white or gray, there is some shine. And of course, that difference is really, really important, because it lets us control the amount of shine and where it's allowed to highlight things. So just to demo that one stage further, I'll plug that into this just so we can see what it's doing. So again, I'll go to my Blinn. I can see the color information. I'm not going to plug anything in there. I'm just going to go down to the specular color channel, which is the one you want to use in Maya if you're ever plugging spec maps in. So specular color, and of course open that up. And of course the big thing here is using the file button, using the little browse button. Then of course I'm going to browse to where I've stored that, and it is my test spec. I'll open that, and of course the second I plug that in, we can see exactly what it's doing. Of course, as we thought, wherever that map is black, there is no shine information. It looks like Lambert material, it's just matte. And of course, where it's white, it's completely allowing that shine information to come through. And of course, if you play with that correctly, you can do so many interesting things. To demonstrate that a little bit further, for instance, say we wanted something that was a bit sparkly and we wanted it to kind of shine, I could break that connection, right? Let's just right-click specular color, break connection, reset it. And let's say we plugged in a procedural. Now, of course, you can paint and design your own specularity maps, but I'm being lazy, so I'm going to throw in this noise texture here, right? So it's just a specular noise map, and we can see that little sample does a lot of the work. It shows us what's going to happen here. So again, the rule is where it is white, shine is allowed to come through, and where it is black, it doesn't come through. And just by having that one basic difference, apart from that horrible seam, is that we can see that it's giving us a surface quality that we wouldn't get if we didn't try that. And of course, we can actually play around with those particular materials. So if I change the thresholds, we can see that changing things in real time on top of our surface, and that is really good fun. Um, so that's what spec maps do. There's nothing particularly complicated about them, but they can give you a nice quality to some of the materials, especially stylized materials. What's really fun is if you get into the habit of like painting your own spec maps. So, for instance, I'm getting a really nice result here all of a sudden, and I'm like, well, what if that was like, a snow material? Like, if I was to give this a sort of very sort of light color and give the maybe the ambient color to be a little bit blue. So say that was a snow material. It's not particularly fancy, but as that rotates, you can see that. Well, let's switch the lights off because that's doing a lot of the work. Remember. Um, but I'm giving myself something to work with there. I might bring that down a little bit further. They're very bright colors, so you always need to play around with that. But you can see here that it's just giving us like that lovely hint of surface quality, and it's good for things like sparkle and dust and sheen, polish, areas that do have color and areas that don't. But it's definitely worth playing around with, and you can get a lot of great results from it. So that's what specularity maps do. They're really good fun and highly recommended. They're very cheap and easy. And of course, when it comes to painting your own spec maps, the easiest way is normally duplicating your color map and just playing around with the basic level of exposure and contrast. And if not, then painting something more customized is always good. In this particular case, if I drop that further, you can really see just how that lovely, just that specular information does so much work for creating a sense of materiality in such a simple and quick and cheap way. And that's what we're all about. Cheap wins are always good. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I gotta go. Things to do. I miss you all. See you soon.